Captain's Log, Subdate 200408.5. We are about to pass through the waters of the long-dead Kekistani kingdom. I can smell the ashes and the disappointment from all the way down here. Maybe someone else will try to resurrect a dead meme, or just farm it for the keks and cringe. Welcome everyone to This Week at Twitter number 2, or Twat 2. Yes. This week I have 8 subjects of interest that I have found during my searches through Twitter, the last of which is arguably the most interesting and only happened yesterday. To start, I'm going to go with Toby Young. Who is Toby Young? An idiot. That's who Toby Young is. He once set up a school that was entirely free for all. 'Cause education's free, yo. It really isn't. And then stepped down from the board of it because he realised, the hard work, yo fam, I can't, I'm in it, I just gotta go do other things, yo swag. Who has been quite critical of the government's action when it came to dealing with the coronavirus. Most notable of which is an article he himself published on The Critic, which I thought was a joke until I read underneath what he actually said, which is something he actually says in the article. I make 3 main arguments. First, that the cost of the economic bailout Rishi Sunak, misspelt, has proposed is too high. Spending that kind of money to extend the lives of a few 100,000, mostly elderly people, with underlying health problems by 1 or 2 years is a mistake. I take 2 issues with this, the most notable of which is your absolutely atrocious grammar and spelling. Can you please, as a writer, do better? Please. It's embarrassing. The second one, which is counter to my presidential slogan that's now probably more than likely on the back burner, thank you coronavirus, or should I just say thank you China, is the fact that you would willingly give up lives cause. In the article you talk about economic downturns and how they impact people's lives as your justification for this position. Yes, I read the article. This should be exhibition of stupid people worthy, to be honest. But since you've actually tweeted this, we're going to address the tweet. You should be ashamed of yourself. Trying to equate lives is a very bad idea. All life is valuable. Oh god, I sound anti-abortion, don't I? You know what I mean, though. And the fact you've tried to rationalise it shows just how narrow-minded you are. Next, Cartoon Network, like many other, let's say, entertainment outlets, are surely putting in overtime to entertain the masses of children who are homeschooling. Yes, education with cartoons. I'm kidding, of course. None of them are doing their learning. I know this for a fact from my own nieces, who are looking for every excuse not to do something, and not giving me one excuse why they can do something. I mentioned the Cartoon Network, because last week was the Transgender Day of Visibility, which I think is a rather odd thing to be celebrating on Twitter, or nationally, when everyone is in their houses. So how one is visible, I guess, comes from their lockdown quarantine photos. I'm not sure how this is entirely stupid, it just entertained me at the idea of Trans Day of Visibility while everyone was behind closed doors. And why on earth a Cartoon Network catering to very, very young children is trying to get kids involved in something that's very much an adult affair. Really gets one's noggin jogging, doesn't it? Next, the next tweet I'd like to discuss has a video, but I can't show the whole video because I'm not entirely sure if this lady in the video is wearing any clothing at all. So instead I'm going to show you the clip that I can show you that bugs me the most. Yes, it is in fact just that forklift being in the middle of a shopping aisle. I'm kidding. The part that interests me the most, and I've archived it down below, are those that have replied saying this woman clearly has a mental illness. How can you possibly be sure of that? All she does is shout violent racial slurs and threats of violence towards people while the police in that instance do nothing. You cannot confirm someone has a mental illness as a valid scapegoat from criticism, which is what a lot of the replies are, along with being quite, let's say, intolerant of someone that size, being so proud of that size and hating on the country that allowed them to get to that size in the first place. Scapegoating mental illness or allowing someone to use it as a shield when we know nothing of the person is a rather weak way of handling a situation. As far as I'm concerned, she's an idiot, and must be called out as such. If she has or is proven to be somebody with a mental illness, it doesn't mean she is still immune from criticism. No one is immune from criticism. Not even Tom Cruise, who I believe tried to take the very essence of Muhammad, just so he would be free from criticism too. Last week, a celebration took place. Oddly enough, it happened to coincide quite handily with the Trans Day of Visibility. Jessica Yaniv, the trans-lesbian warrior princess, got suspended, which was arguably one of the most yes things that should ever happen on Twitter ever. Considering how volatile, the vitriol Jessica throws at people, the abuse, the intolerance, unsurprising and unironic, it surprised me it took this long for them to actually do it. And I had thought perhaps this was the start of a new time, a fresh, clean slate, one where Jessica Yaniv was not cancering up the site. And of course then continuing to be as absolutely horrific towards so many people, because Jessica must have what Jessica wants, and if you don't give Jessica what Jessica wants, i.e. waxed balls, then Jessica will sue you. Yes. Well, Twitter, in their infinite wisdom, decided to give back Jessica Yaniv's account. I'm not entirely sure how Jessica got suspended in the first place, but I am somewhat surprised that Jessica served Jessica's time and then is back on the site. I know far too many people who have just said, dude, who got lucky to get their account back at all. So one can only wonder and posit that perhaps Jessica said something even more heinous. Maybe something along the lines of, I really like Blair White. Next. If any of the earlier subjects didn't get me demonetized, this one more than likely will. If it isn't this one, it'll definitely be the last one. There is a Twitter handle called EqualEquine. I may have mispronounced that, I don't care enough, who is a self-confessed zoophile. Now, I initially thought this Twitter thread was one large troll, the one you're seeing on the screen here, about consent with animals. Right. They can't communicate with us on our level, therefore no, they cannot consent. And of course, cross-species loving should be off the table, outside of LARPers dressing up as centaurs. I had also thought this was Whitney, Wisconsin. If you remember her, if you don't, just look her up. She's precious. But what I discovered was there are other Twitter threads with more arguments involving this user who tries to justify having consensual love, sex even, with animals. Right. They can't consent. I've already explained why. And why you're so desperate to get off with one, a horse especially, astonishes me, because the damage it would do to you would be undoubtedly life-altering, and would probably more than likely require surgery if you even survived penetration. People like this actually exist. That astonishes me, especially when they say that these arguments can be dealt with rationally and logically. No, they can't. You want something you cannot prove consent can be granted with, but at the same time say you are against it when it doesn't involve consent, because that is, of course, grape. Interesting. I'd like to know where the consent is. A hoof stamp on a piece of paper with the word consent written on is not consent. Them saying nay or presenting hindquarters is also not consent. I haven't even got to the stupidest one of these yet. Next. Do you remember Roosh V, the pickup artist? Yeah. He's changed his ways, everyone. He's now a very devout Orthodox. So much so that because of what the coronavirus has done to people, he has decided to announce to us all that if a vaccine for the coronavirus exists, he will never take it. Do you know why? Because the mark of the beast is an implantable chip within the coronavirus vaccine. Just ask Bill Gates. At least he's saving us on vaccinations. Next, I want to talk about a man called David, because David's a rather interesting man who at one point was advocating on his Twitter account via the Target Twitter handle to get someone removed from their job at Target. But then a few months later, because of course circumstances mean so much and the past doesn't come back to bite us on the backside, he's advocating for the protection of jobs. in retail interesting. So to our final piece, we go to James Charles, a very popular young man who does look fabulous, who took part in a rather cringe-worthy mugshot challenge courtesy of TikTok. Now, I'm not overly fond of the challenges they've been creating, this one least of all. There is a risk with this kind of challenge that it will cause those who look at it to get quite triggered, because it will either bring back something from their past or cause them to feel something they don't want to feel. James Charles's contribution was one that many believed promoted DV, but he was just taking part in a challenge. So people pounced on him cos all over Twitter and went a bit knucking futs in his direction. Now, James at first tried to defend it using The Weeknd, who in a music video did in fact have himself covered in cuts, bruises and blade. But The Weeknd, for the sake of optics, decided, nah fam, you're on your own. I'm going to scold you too. So James ended up deleting his original post because he doesn't want to be a part of that to promote it. I personally thought James had done something quite clever artistically to create things like that to such a degree. It looked very well made. So credit to him for being able to do that. The reaction is actually the part that I find most interesting. The way people have pounced on it and not thought about it, not realising he was just taking part in another one of those cringy little challenges, is astonishing, because their own PTSD is more important than others taking part in cringy challenges. Granted, I will concede things like that are going to hurt some people, but that doesn't mean he is trying to promote DV. He is never trying to promote DV. Hopefully people can understand that. So who is it, I guess, that is the TWAT in this? Those that got offended and decided to just dogpile James cause. With this, I'm very much interested to know what you think was the most precious piece of this week at Twatter or Twat. Yes, please do let me know in the comments down below. I am going to be streaming on Twitch later tonight, and there's a new video on Moisky Live. If I don't see you there tonight on Twitch, I hope you'll have a fantastic X number of days in quarantine, and thank you all for listening.